Harihi Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we continue our study of Sri Caitanya Siksamrita. What have we covered so far? Even though you missed the first 2 days, what did we discuss yesterday?
We discussed about stepping stones.
Ah, the stepping stone principle, right?
Yes, and about Sambandha Vidya Prayojana also.
Yes, good.
How it's important for us, Sanatana Rupa Goswami.
Sanatana Goswami.
Oh, Sanatana Goswami got instructions for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because he wants to show us how Shastra is offered to everyone.
How it's presented and how it should be understood. Now, what's the danger if we don't follow that formula?
We can miss point of a message of the Shastra.
Yes.
And we can't understand how to say our position as Sambandha or Vidya. It will lead to us or Sahaja or something other deviation.
Some sort of wishy-washy thing. Yeah, so many different ways.
Yes.
So many different philosophies that don't lead to the actual goal because of that. Pandav, Mashai?
Yes, like Raga is defined as a tendency of the mind because spontaneously attracted to an object, immediately and seeing it without intellectual consequence. So, and I like very much the point that until we reach this Raga, then we duty bound to perform our duty sadhana bhakti. And suppression is not always a bad thing.
Yes.
Sometimes it's the only option that you have. The other option is anymore. So the human to suppress it, there will be anymore to spontaneous.
Yes. Good. Thank you. Anyone else? Chandrika? Betty? Remind me one more time. Yana. I don't know why that's so difficult. It's 2 syllables. Yana. I have it. Oh, you missed the question. We're just covering what we've gone over so far in the last 3 classes.
We go to Krishna by 4 reasons.
Yeah.
Fear,
Desire.
duty, and attraction.
Good. Anything?
If we're going over everything that we've done so far, we also learn about the differences between our material world and the spiritual world, about happiness and how it's different.
Okay, good. How's it different? What's the difference between material happiness and spiritual happiness?
Well, material happiness is temporary, and it's more like the absence of suffering and comfort to live to. Whereas happiness in the spiritual world is real happiness, and it's not temporary. It just keeps on going.
Good, good. Yeah, eternal and ever increasing. Yeah. Good. That means everyone's paying attention. Do you want to add something, Betty?
Well, pretty much everything that I've thought of, they already said.
They already said the good stuff. They covered everything. Okay, good, good. And remind me your name, Prabhu?
Victor.
Victor. I knew that, but sometimes I lose things in my brain. Do you have anything to add of what we've covered so far the last 3 days?
Not really, no. I missed yesterday's.
Oh, that's right. Okay. No problem. No problem, no problem. Okay, so yesterday we left off, we started reading this paragraph, but I decided we'll start it again today because it starts talking about some stages, and then it talks about them for a while, so it's better to do it all in one day than to start in the middle of it. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, there are 3 stages between the primitive, uncivilized state of mankind and the devotional state. So you have uncivilized, devotional, and then there are 3 between that. Those 3 are civilized, scientific, and moral, and these will be explained below. In these 3 stages, however, the disease of atheism, materialism, skepticism, and voidism afflict many people. Acting as obstacles to their progress, those philosophies bring them to a lamentable state. Of course, not all people will be so afflicted. Those who are infected by the disease become bound up and do not progress to the higher stages of life. The primitive tribal, taking advantage of the system of Varna Ashrama and cultivating civilized manners, proper conduct, and education, can quickly attain the life of a devotee. This is the natural path of progress for mankind. But if people become afflicted by the disease of materialistic philosophies, they fall into an unnatural state of existence. So basically, the second part of this paragraph, after explaining these 3 stages in between the uncivilized and devotional state, basically it's saying that we have a nature, all of us, we have the same nature. We're all spirit soul. And that's our primary nature, or our constitutional nature. But we also have a conditioned nature, based on our previous activities, based on the bodies that we have now, both the gross body and the subtle body, the mind, the intelligence, the false ego. And these are very unique. Everyone's material conditioning is different. This is going to be pointed out soon, so I'm not going to bother explaining. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is pointing out that even the primitive tribal person, if they take advantage of the proper system, then they can very easily attain pure devotional service. Whereas those who are trying, even if they're trying to attain the same goal, if they're not taking the proper process, then no matter how much endeavor they put forth, they're not going to actually get the actual goal. They're going to get something else. So if it's materially motivated, you're going to get a materialistic result. You stay in the material world. Okay, continuing. Although people in various countries on various continents have a wide variety of natures, the principal nature is only one. Only the secondary characteristics are of great variety. Thus, though the principal nature is one, there will not be found any 2 people in the world who have identical secondary qualities. So our primary qualities are the same, Sat Chit Ananda. Our secondary qualities, you're not going to find two people in the world that have the same. As even twins have some difference in form and quality, one cannot expect that people born in different countries can ever have exactly the same qualities. Different countries have different water, air, mountains, forests, food, and clothing. Because of this, the people of these places have naturally developed different physiques, complexions, customs, clothing, and diet. Similarly, the people's mentality will differ. And so various people's idea of God, although being basically similar, will differ in details. Again, this is why it's important, if we go back to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's first sentence after offering obeisances to Radha and Krishna, that there are countless philosophies, but although attempting to reach the truth, they're incomplete and mutually conflicting. So even though they all have good intentions, all of these philosophies are incomplete unless they're following this process, Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana. When inhabitants in various countries surpass the uncivilized stage and progress to the civilized stage, the scientific stage, the moral stage, and the devotional stage, they will develop differences in language, dress, food, and mentality. So we see this even in the same country, there are different types of cultures, right? There are different types of generations, so like our parents behave differently than we do. We even have different languages. As time goes on, generations come up with different lingo. What's the latest lingo called now? I don't know what it's called. It's called...
What's a lingo?
I don't know. Lingo is like colloquialism for...
Sling.
Slang, yes. Different types of slang that people use.
What's lit?
Huh?
What's lit?
What's lit? Yeah, that's an example of a term. But what's the name of the people who use that term?
Zoomers.
Zoomers?
Yeah.
That's what it is now, Zoomers, okay. Because I don't keep up with all the different generations. So there's different language, there's different ways to dress, there's different foods, right? There's different mentality. So I think the Zoomers enjoy avocado toast. Maybe? Yeah? Is that right?
We can say that, yeah.
Yeah, we can say that, okay. I got it right. I'm not an expert on these things.
I'm a zoomer.
Are you a Zoomer? Oh, because you like avocado? No, just because you like avocado toast doesn't make you a Zoomer. Yeah, so not even on different countries, there's different languages, customs, food, etc. Even within the country, different regions, even within the same house, you find different cultures existing, different ways of speaking. It's quite common for my brother, who is a parent and a grandparent now, where he's like, I have no idea what the heck my daughter is talking about, because she's using some sort of lingo that's hip and cool, but he has no clue what it means. So forget about different countries. The same house can have so many cultural divides that there's no surprise that there are so many different philosophies. There's different languages, there's different foods. But since we all have the same nature, we can all relate to the same things. Just we talk about them in different languages. So considering the matter objectively, there is no harm in secondary differences, right? The problem isn't that we have these secondary differences, as long as we're able to tap into what that primary need is, right? But if we're communicating only about secondary things with our secondary differences, then we're just lost, right? So that's what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is explaining.
The problem is that people don't think that there is randomly.
Yes,
Nature of anything.
that's true.
So they are left only with secondary.
That's true.
And when you stop in, you're using resources, right?
And what was the last part?
Tapping. It's also
Yeah, tapping. It's also like a slang word, tapping.
Oh, tap in?
Yeah.
I was using slang. That was, what's my generation called? X, maybe? Generation X? I don't know.
You
Which
were a skateboarder. Like.
No, I'm older than X. What am I?
We don't have these things.
I'm just an old dude.
This is about you guys.
Yeah. No, because before me, there were the boomers, the baby boomers. So
these are the gurus in this.
whatever's after, I have no idea, but that's where I am. I don't know where I belong. Like I said, I often find that I was born in the wrong era, but then I realized after time that no, I was born in the exact era that I belong in because I'm quite uncomfortable here. And that's how we should feel. We should feel uncomfortable here. Okay. If there is agreement concerning the essential nature of God and His worship, there should be no obstacle in attaining the same result. So even if we're using different language, different clothes, different food, if there is agreement concerning the essential nature of God, then there's no obstacle. So Mahaprabhu therefore has instructed that we should teach everyone to worship the pure form of the Lord, but at the same time we should not criticize others' modes of worship. There's a footnote here, 14. It's from Caitanya Siksamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 116. The devotees should not worship demigods, nor should he disrespect them. Similarly, the devotee should not study or criticize other scriptures. Right? We don't study other scriptures because it's none of our business, really. And we don't criticize other scriptures because it's none of our business. Thank you. I'm glad that we can finish each other's sentences. It's none of our business. So we may disagree with some of the external or secondary aspects of certain philosophies. And we may think that, I could actually correct their behaviors, right? But this is not what we are instructed to do. Now, in about a page and a half, if we get that far today, we will find that there are sometimes exceptions to this rule. It's not that we just say, yatamat tatapat, that means whatever you want, that's good for you. It's not that we do that. What Srila Prabhupada did, what he did by his example, is he said, whatever name of God you're comfortable with, whatever you've been calling him, Yahweh, Jehovah, Ra, whoever, whatever, you just chant that name. So God is not different from his name. So when you say his name, think of him, associate with him, try to figure out what he would want you to do with your life, right? These are the instructions. Of course, if we're attracted to this philosophy, then yes, these are the names that we become comfortable with. Because we find that, at least I've found, in my experience, when I was 13, I understood that there has to be something more than life in the material world. And so I was raised a Lutheran. It's a branch of Christianity. This fellow, Martin Luther, basically set up a branch of Christianity. So that's what I was raised. And when you're 12, 13, 14, you go through what's called catechism. The Catholics do it also. So you do some Bible study. You learn, you take the religion seriously, you learn about it. It's similar to our initiation process. You have to take a test to show that you actually understand the philosophy. And you become confirmed. It's kind of like initiation, where after that you're allowed to take communion. You get a new name. Usually you don't use it, but you get it.
What was your name?
No idea. I don't know. I don't remember.
If you got one.
Yeah, I guess so. I must have. But I don't know. I don't remember. Anyway, while I was going through catechism, we had a guest vicar that was giving class. And she asked us what it meant to sin. What does sin mean? What's the definition of sin? So, who wants to try to answer that? What does it mean to sin?
Do something that God doesn't like.
Do something that God doesn't like. That's actually a really good answer. That's not the answer we gave. That's a good answer. Anything else? What's sin?
What is described in the Veda as simple.
Okay, that's good. That's a good answer also.
Not doing your duty also.
Also not doing your duty. Good answer. So when I was 13, the answers that me and my peers came up with were just like to do something wrong or to do something evil or to do something bad. That's what we thought sin was. And so the vicar, she said, okay, these are examples of sin, but we want like a precise definition. And you almost hit the nail on the head, pretty much. Basically exactly it, just different words. So she wrote on the chalkboard, she wrote a very small S, a huge capital letter I, and then a small n. And she said to sin is to put yourself before God, to think I am more important than God. So you're right, what you said. Of course, 13-year-old me wasn't as intelligent as, how old are you?
26.
As 26-year-old you.
Twice.
Right? So, but that actually made a lot of sense to me because I thought, okay, well, if God owns everything, everything comes from Him, everything is His. If I'm considering anything mine, then I'm stealing it, right? Because it's not mine, it's God's, right? So putting yourself before God is a sin. So then I started thinking, oh, that's basically all we do. Where do we put God in the center? And I tried to look for examples of where we put God in the center. And so I was looking around at the congregational members in my church, the minister included, because I was best friends with his son, so I knew them very well. And although there were some times where God was in the center of the conversation or the, whatever, people weren't really living up to that definition. They weren't trying to become free of sin. They were very much appreciative that Jesus took away their sins, allegedly, but they weren't trying to live without sin. So then I thought, okay, let me go to another friend's church and see if I can find people that are taking this seriously there. And so I'd go to another person's church, same thing. I also had a Jewish friend, so I went to his temple, and same thing. All the philosophies were saying the same essential truths, but I couldn't find anyone that was actually taking it seriously enough that I could learn from. I could read the books, and I appreciated all of them. Buddhism, Islam, I appreciated all of them. But I needed someone that actually took it seriously enough that I could be comfortable actually learning from, right? And so, I'm trying to remember why we got there. Oh, yeah, maybe. Okay. So, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu here was instructing that we don't criticize others' modes of worship because everyone is on a very unique path, right? Here we are in the material world. There are various reasons. There are various things that we are attracted to. We have these different modes of nature that are affecting us, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and to various different degrees. So some people need to practice spirituality in a very different way than others are practicing spirituality for the time being. Eventually, all paths of spirituality lead to God. There's one God. But where you become attracted to following that path will determine basically which path you're on. So Krishna himself came as Buddha, for example. We gave this example yesterday. The people didn't want to hear about God, and if someone started talking about God, they wouldn't even listen. But Krishna came as Lord Buddha to at least teach people manners. Don't be idiots. Don't be violent. Teach them just basic manners, right? Because then, once they have manners, then they're willing to take the next step. So Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining here that we're not to criticize any of these other paths, but we are to encourage anyone following whatever path they're following to basically follow it better, to follow it correctly, we should say.
Then how can we do that without criticizing like the stepping stone? You have to get better. In order for you to get better, you have to live what you're already doing. It's not proper.
Right?
So, how to do it without?
What's the contradiction?
How to do it without criticizing the process that they have?
How to do it?
The insufficiency in the process that they have.
So here, what was established is that since all philosophies are leading to, there's one nature, the spiritual nature. Everyone's actually striving for the same thing. Depending on what country you're in, what culture you belong to, there's different types of languages, there's different types of foods, there's different types of traditions. And so as long as within all of those secondary things, they're actually focused on the primary thing, then there's no issue. If they're only focused on the secondary thing, that's the issue. So what gets corrected is not the secondary things, it's the primary thing behind those secondary things. So that's what we try to redirect first. Now, at some point, like what happened with me, because I was looking for a very specific thing, and I wasn't finding it in any of these other religions until I came in contact with the devotees. So then I understood that it was time to leave the other things behind. But until then it's premature. And we see that Srila Prabhupada did that as well when he was preaching. Of course, he's encouraging people to chant Hare Krishna, but he's also saying, if you're accustomed to a different name, you just chant that name, right? When people would say, no, this mantra, it's Indian, that's not for us. Okay, what do you call God? What do you call him? Yahweh, Jehovah, Christ, whatever. You chant that name, right? He didn't say, sometimes he would get heavy with certain Christians, like Cardinal Angelou, right? But there's a reason he was very heavy with Cardinal Angelou. To the general public, he would encourage, you just do whatever your process is telling you properly, right? But with Cardinal Angelou, it was strange because Cardinal Angelou was trying to do that same thing. He was trying to say, yes, we have these similarities. Let's talk about the similarities between our religions. And Srila Prabhupada was relentlessly attacking one point. And that's, why do you tell them it's okay to eat meat, right? Now the reason he was so relentless against Cardinal Angelou is because he's a cardinal. It's not just his decision. His practice is affecting all of his followers, right? And so he has a responsibility that's much greater than the general public's responsibility. He has a position of guru, teaching. And so if that's what your position is, then yes, you should understand your philosophy and teach it better, right? And we'll find that in about a page and a half. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out how there are some exceptions to this rule of, you don't criticize these, but if you see something that's absolutely wrong in principle, then you can address that. But we don't address the externals, the secondary, right? We just make sure we try to adjust it so they're following that primary. Once they're following the primary, they're naturally going to come to the superior form of religion. Now there are some that remain attached to their old traditions. So there are a few priests, for example, that chant 16 rounds a day, but they also still consider themselves Christians because that's the culture that they, grew up with. And they see that all the principles are the same, but they appreciate that it's more clearly defined and more clearly described in Krishna consciousness, right? So they follow the rules and regulations knowing that originally all of that was maintained in their own religion, but they still have that. So that's fine, that's okay. But some, like me, I just kind of left that behind because it never had value to me more than just showing me that I have to find the actual truth, not just a shadow of it, right? And it's there. It's not that it didn't exist in Christianity. It's there somewhere. I couldn't find it in the people that I was going through, or in Judaism, or in Buddhism. I often say this, and since we're recording it, I'm not going to say it, actually, because it's more of a thing that you just say to, you know, intimately to some close people. So, anyway, yeah, I'll say it. So, I was fortunate that when I encountered ISKCON, my motivations were that I needed to find people that took the process seriously. And I was fortunate that when I was introduced to ISKCON, there were people that were very much taking this process seriously. The majority of the people in Krishna consciousness actually were taking this process very seriously. No compromise, this is it, this is what you do. If you want it to work, you do it like this. If you can't, that's okay too, but don't expect it to work if you're not, you know, actually doing it properly. Same with cooking, anything. You follow the instructions, it comes out properly. If you don't, it may partially come out, right? If I were to encounter ISKCON now, I may have moved on. I may not have stuck around long enough to find out that there are actually people that are taking this seriously. And I regret a little bit that this is on video, but probably no one's watching it anyway. So it doesn't matter.
They were watching this one. They will clip it.
This is the one. They're going to clip it, and they're going to play it on repeat. Now, that's not to say there are plenty of sincere souls in ISKCON. Plenty. And I'm fortunate to know a lot of them. But, I mean, still now, when I visit a temple, when I walk into the temple, it's basically a ghost town, and the people I encounter, in most cases, aren't necessarily accurate representations of what you read about in the books. And that's unfortunate, but it's also common. It's not something that I just had some strange experiences with. It's something that I've talked to other devotees about. But everyone's attracted for different reasons. Some people are attracted because they came from the yoga scene, and so this is a natural step over. Some people are really into kirtan, right? There are different reasons. For me, it was the seriousness of the practitioners. That's not most people's attractive feature, you know? So, it does go to show, though, and it's actually encouraging. It sounded like I was, the way I was saying it, it sounded discouraging, right? The way ISKCON is now as opposed to the way. But I'll tell you why it's actually encouraging, because although there is a test area of devotees that are less serious, there are more of them. So that means wherever they used to be, wherever they were before, now they at least appreciate Krishna consciousness more. So in other words, they're getting closer, right? And then they will get even closer. And how will they get closer? This is an actual question for you. How do we get from practicing a philosophy loosely, having a sentimental attachment to it, but not understanding the actual principle? How do we get from there to seriously and properly follow?
By associating the ghost with proper form.
Okay.
So that means that there should be devotees and proper form, and they should be, how to say, they should not be Vaishnavas, they should be Vaishnavas. They should spread the glories of being.
So we shouldn't go to Bhajananandis, we should only go to Gostinandis.
No. I need your mentality. These devotees who are practicing strongly, they should preach the glories of God.
Okay. Just clarifying. Yeah, so what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is pointing out based on this conversation between Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami is that the way to go from all of these different countless philosophies that are attempting to reach the truth but are incomplete is to actually understand the language of the Vedas, to understand the principle which comes through sadhu sangha, as you pointed out. The issue these days is that, how do we define sadhu sangha? Like literally, how's it defined? What's the English translation that's commonly used?
If you want me to, Jim Goswami explains the three criteria for sadhu sangha.
Okay.
The person should be more advanced, and he should be sympathetic. That means he should have some affection for you.
Yeah.
And he should be like-minded.
But what's the common English phrase that we use for sadhu sangha?
Association.
Association. Now, we tend to have different ideas of what the definition of words are, right? We talked about, what did we talk about the other day? Submissive, we talked about that. So association, because there's two parts of it. There's the association and there's of the devotees. There's the sadhu part and the sangha part, right? So the general idea of just what association means is being in proximity, right? But proximity doesn't mean association. The word association, it means that you're actually identifying and engaging with, right? And so the sadhu, the sat part of sadhu is the eternal principle, which is coming down, right? That eternal nature, not the secondary, the primary. So sadhu sangha means that you are actually engaging in and identifying with the eternal principle, right? If I'm with a whole bunch of devotees and we're talking about something that's not connected to sat, that's not sadhu sangha. We can call that a sadhu sangha retreat. We can think it's sadhu sangha. It is not. That's it, by definition. So we have to understand what the terms mean. And how do we understand what the terms mean? Read Prabhupada's books, yes. And understand how to read Srila Prabhupada's books, right? Because we have countless examples of arguments within our movement of two opposing parties quoting the same Shastra. And they can't come to an agreement because they don't know properly, completely, how to understand Shastra. They're only understanding part of it, and they're not understanding that all contradictions are resolved in the Shastra, right? So generally, not all the time, but generally in these cases when there are two parties arguing and using Shastra to support their points, generally it's due to their conditioning that they have that opinion, and they're trying to refer to Shastra to strengthen that opinion. So it's good that they're trying to refer to Shastra, but it's not good that they're trying to justify their conditioned understanding, right? And so a common example I give of this, because we don't want to choose the more political ones because they're very sensitive, but they're all political. So I choose the least. It still is actually very political. Some people won't even say. They call it the V word, varnashram. So there are people that say, look, varnashrama dharma, this is external. You give it up. Lord Caitanya said that's external. Real devotion is deeper than that, right? And so they say we don't have to worry about varnashram at all. And then there are others who take the other extreme and they say, no. Varnashrama dharma is so important that they actually become too attached to it. In other words, they're the ones that build the house on the stepping stone. And then the other ones are the ones that are stuck on the wrong side of the river saying, you got to get off of the stepping stones anyway, so why bother using them, right? So insert any political divide within that the ISKCON devotees argue over, and the two extremes are always going to be that. One person's on one side that they should be on the other, and they're refusing to use the instruments that will get them there. And the other ones are giving more importance to the instruments than actually getting to the other side. Now, those are just the extremes. There are people in the center that are using both points. They lean one way or the other, that do have good intentions, and they think that, no, this is actually the better way to get to where we want to go, right? But what we need to understand is how both of these things and neither of these things have value depending on what our consciousness is. If our consciousness is that we want to be taken seriously by the rest of the world, we want to be accepted, that's not Krishna consciousness. I'm sorry, but it's not. It's community consciousness, public relations conscious. Srila Prabhupada wasn't really that concerned with how the public thought of him. He just preached philosophy. And on the other side, because just saying that might give the impression that I'm leaning one way or the other on different issues. So the other side of that is because it can be taken the other way as well, where there are people who are traditionalists, which is good because we follow Shastra, that just take it too far, and their motive, and not all of them, I'm just saying there are some extremists, that their motive is more based in material traditionalism than transcendental goals, right? And so if we, those who are listening to the arguments, can understand Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana, then we can see which devotees are being motivated by personal things and which ones are actually being motivated by spiritual things. And if we're careful, we won't get caught up in either of those extremes, and we'll just be tapped into the actual principle, right? The details, they're going to be different. But if we're focused on that principle sincerely, without any material attachment, then we're actually on the right track. If that makes sense. So the point is, and to your point, devotee association is how we get it. But we have to know what devotee association is. In order to do that, we have to understand how the Vedas is talking to us, Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana. And as I mentioned before, Srila Prabhupada gave that to us in our language, right? He's always talking about how knowledge means the knowledge of the relationship between spirit and matter and the creator and controller of both, right? And he's always talking about the process, he's always talking about the goal. Just because he's not consistently using the terms Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana, he is talking about these things. So the sooner we can actually recognize that, then the sooner we won't be distracted by externals, right? The externals will always be there. The secondary things will always be different. The way we talk, the way we eat, the way we dress. But if the primary is actually understood, then whether they're, dressed like this or dressed a different way or speaking different types of slang or eating different types of food, if that principle is understood actually and appreciated, then everyone just makes clear advancement. But when we focus on the secondary and we try to convince someone to change their secondary without actually addressing that primary, we're wasting our time. We're wasting their time, we're wasting our time, it's just a complete waste. Right? So that's why this is important, because if we don't understand this properly, even though we are referring to Vaishnava Shastras, we may have a very different understanding of what it's trying to present. So this portion of the course is to get us to understand and appreciate how Shastra is actually trying to guide us so that we can actually follow it instead of just hearing it from time to time, appreciating it, and one day I'll actually understand it, right? No, we can understand it now. Shastra is there to improve our lives, to not materially, to actually remove the coverings of the polluted consciousness, right? That's the principle, that's what we're trying to do. And so if that's what we focus on, we're golden. Focus on the other stuff, we're distracted, we're just arguing over nothing. Because in this material world, there will always be countless philosophies that are incomplete. They're gonna exist. Krishna himself directly started many of them. Indirectly, obviously, he starts everything because not a blade of grass moves without his will. But the Mayavadis that we're so upset with, Lord Vishnu sent Lord Shiva to come down and mislead them because they appreciated spirituality, but they also had material attachments. So they got a perfect mixture for what they wanted. They got exactly what they wanted, right? So there's no question of trying to fix the world by defeating other philosophies. It's defeating the tendencies within those philosophies to veer off the actual principle, and that's what we address. Does that make sense? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So can we say that if you are Kanishta, the Kanishtas, they will criticize the secondary, but the Madhyamas, they will address the principle?
Yeah, you can say that, because the Kanishtas, it means that they have faith in something, but it's not deep faith. It's not backed by Shastra. So there's, what is it? Lokika Shraddha and Shastriya Shraddha. So Lokika Shraddha, it can be very strong, but it's not very deep, right? So in other words, the people, even under threat of death, they will say, no, I will not abandon my religious belief. That's strong faith, but it's not very deep because they don't know why. They can't explain why, they just know that this is important to me. That's the Kanishta mentality. Their faith can be strong, but it's not very deep. The Madhyamas are able to distinguish what is right and wrong based on Shastra, right? Obviously the Uttamas even more so. So yeah, you can say that. You can say that the Kanishtas will be more focused on the details because they don't understand the difference between the details and the principles. And the Madhyamas, since they have that power of being able to distinguish some things, they're at least going to try to focus on the principle.
And also it's stated that the Kanishtas are puffed up usually.
Yes.
And they think my mode of worship is the best.
Of course.
And the best.
Yeah.
And the Madhyamas are usually more humble, more appreciative, they have broader vision.
Yes. Yeah, there's a common thing that we refer to in America as PDS, Pure Devotee Syndrome. You have it in Russia too, Bulgaria, everywhere. Pure Devotee Syndrome, it's everywhere. We first come to Krishna consciousness, we get an understanding, we're convinced of it, and then we're wondering, why the hell isn't anybody actually following it properly? Right? I'm following it properly, but why isn't anybody else doing it? Yeah, that's common. And if we're lucky enough, if we're sincere enough, if we're dedicated and determined enough and have Krishna's mercy, then we can move beyond that stage and realize what our position is in relation to the Supreme Whole. So it's Sambandha, right? And then we can get a proper understanding of what the true goal is. The goal of life isn't to be comfortable or to amass lots of wealth or to have influence over others. Once we understand what the actual goal of life is, right? And we understand what our relationship is, then we can determine the process, how to get from where we are to where we want to be. And that's exactly what this conversation is teaching us how to do. In very specific ways, because as you said, the tendency when we're neophytes is we simplify everything. We don't understand nuance. We don't understand these things. We just, no, it's this or that, so we do this because, you know, and we're very fanatical about it. Cow. And they're both right. Yes, so it's common. That's the mentality. So, but once we start understanding things properly, then there's no question of thinking that we know better than anyone else. There are some people that think they know better than the acharyas. They must have translated this wrong because actually, you know, this other acharya is saying this point and it seems contradictory. They don't for a second consider that both could be correct. And that's a problem. Because if they think that they know better than an acharya, And that's the reason we're here in the material world. We think we're better than Krishna. We know better than Krishna.
It's similar to the argument that some devotees were making against Krishna book, that it is not possible to fit
all those people in the
small
area,
small area of Mathura, and the fault there was that they were overestimating the importance of material mathematics.
Yes.
In spiritual matters.
Yes.
Which is ridiculous, but
yes.
It's kind of difficult also to.
Yeah, in the same way, the Rasa dance, which was one night, it was actually simultaneously many, many days of Brahma. They can't happen together materially, but they certainly did happen spiritually. We can't put material limitations on spiritual matters. That's the issue. And that's another reason why we're here. Because we don't understand the difference. Trying to see how much farther we can get. Yeah, okay, so we'll continue. So because of the above reasons, we see the following differences among the religions of different countries. So there are 5, and these are going to be referred to in the following paragraphs. So first is the differences of teachers or prophets. Then there's the difference in worshippers' mentality and consequent expression of reverence, how they revere their God. Difference in procedures of worship or ritual. Difference in conceptions of God. And difference in God's names and God's statements due to different language. For example, people in India give respect to the rishis, the sages. In other countries, they respect prophets like Muhammad. In other countries, they respect Christ. And in other places, the inhabitants give respect to various native sages.
Yeah, we have plenty of those in our place. The native sages.
Yes, yes. In America, we have, I think the most popular one is Mickey Mouse.
I thought you referred to the names from
The Donald Duck also. And there used to, well, I think now Taylor Swift is edged out the Marvel universe. But they had a good run. Yeah, any celebrity, any rich person, basically anyone that has any one of the 6 opulences, well, I should say 5 because most people don't appreciate renunciation. Although, if you think about it, this is probably just where we're going to end then. If you think about it, renunciation is actually the most important opulence, because if you have any of the other 5, if you're not renounced, it's not really attractive. So the people that are very beautiful but know it, they're not beautiful after a very short amount of time. Yes. Same with intelligence. People that know that they're intelligent and just go on and they're completely full of, it's not actually attractive anymore, right? So we see many examples of this just in our daily lives where, something seems attractive and then we kind of get to know and we're like, okay, no longer attractive, right? So renunciation is actually the thing that makes these attractive qualities more attractive, because you can have these opulences while not being attached or attracted, not being, attached to it, right? And that's when it's actually attractive. When someone has a lot of money, but they take care of people in need, they use it for, proper reasons. That's not to say, that's just piety, that's punya karma, that's not the topmost, but at least it's much more attractive than those that are just hoarding it for themselves, right? So renunciation is actually, without it, the other opulences aren't actually that opulent, they're not that attractive.
It's like going to see a movie.
You watch it again, and it's like you kind of get embarrassed by it because like you told your friends about it, and you're like, you're gonna love this movie. And I can't believe you never saw it. And then you watch it again, and you're just like, I remember it being different. Yeah, it happens. Yes. Yeah.
I just had a simple question regarding the, how's it called, the 14th. Where the
Footnote?
Yeah, footnote, yeah. That devotees should not study or criticize other scriptures, but in a sense, even you, to some extent, studied other scriptures to like make a point that, okay, Vaishnavism is the most important thing for me now. So where's the line? Because we have to be kind of educated when we face the world and not be like, it's just my thing and I don't know about anything else.
Yes. Very good question, very important. So Shriyas Upanishad addresses that. And the way it addresses it is actually subject to a lot of interpretation. And people accept whichever one is most suitable to their current desires. So Shriyas Upanishad says that we have to understand the path of knowledge and ignorance side by side. And what that means is we have to know the difference between the two so that we stay on the right one. But what some take it to mean is, well, yes, you have to engage in spirituality, but you also have to address your base needs. And some people take that to an extreme, where they're more concerned with their material comforts than they are with the cultivation of spirituality. So we have to understand the difference. So as long as we're focused on that principle, we're good. Back when I was 13, I didn't belong to anything, and I was searching for something. So reading through those things wasn't ill-advised because I needed to find it, and I didn't have it. Once we are once we have dedicated ourselves to something, then it doesn't mean, and this will come up too, this is actually all going to be clarified next class probably, or the one after that. So I'll give an example, a personal example of mine. For a year I was living in the woods with no electricity, and I had neighbors who ran a Baptist church. And so they invited me to come. So I'd ride my bicycle there on the Sundays where the weather wasn't too bad. And I'd listen to the Bible study. I'd actually participate. The minister and I became very good friends. And everything was good because I wasn't trying to convert them. They weren't trying to convert me. We were just appreciating the similarities between our philosophies. And I was happy to be surrounded by people that actually thought of God, right? Acknowledged His existence and lived their lives in such a way where at least it was their interpretation of what His instructions are. They lived their lives by that. Simple enough, very good people. And they also had enough respect for me, so down south, in America, there's the southern and the northern part. They're very hospitable. So when they meet somebody, they naturally invite you to dinner. And of course I had to say, I have a very strange diet, you don't have to worry about it. No, just tell us what the diet is. And so I'm like, it's honestly, it's too much, don't even worry about it. No, we insist, please tell us. Anyway, fast forward a few visits, and they actually cook Vedic anytime I'm there. No onions, no garlic. Not only are they not cooking meat, but they're actually not preparing anything with onions or garlic because of respect. They respect something, and so it's nice. So I was able to sit in on those Bible study classes without being critical of them, and being able to appreciate the similarities. If we're able to do that, that's fine. If we're veering off of the principle in any way, focusing on the details, then we can get caught up and we can become distracted, and then that's where the issue becomes an issue.
It starts being like an obstacle.
So, and there are some devotees whose service, that whose actual service is to go and do these like inter-religious dialogues. And it's because in their background they've studied different religions, usually before they became Vaishnavas. So, you know, they maintain that, and that's fine. That's not an issue as long as they're not distracted. And in a similar way, you can stick to reading only one Shastra, but if you're still only on that detail, not the principle, you're not getting anywhere either. So that's the trick, is that if you're focusing on anything but the principle, you will be distracted. And which is why there are countless philosophies. We just have to read that opening paragraph over and over again. Countless philosophies, but although attempting to reach the truth, in other words, they all have good intentions, they're incomplete and mutually conflicting, being generated from illusory premises. As long as we're tinged with this secondary nature, then that's, to whatever degree that is, that's where the philosophy is going to be. It's not that the philosophy is polluted, but our view of the philosophy is polluted, to whatever extent we're imposing our material ideas or conceptions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yes, Pandav Ji.
Also, Srila Prabhupada was asked by the devotees, they had some idea, let us study the Bible. And because there are many nice quotes, and let us use the Bible to preach to Christians from the Bible and explain to them what actually the Bible means. Prabhupada dismissed this. He said, no, we are preaching from Bhagavad Gita. We quote Bhagavad Gita. We don't go into their territory and try to convince them there. We study our book, and because our book is anyway broader, and if you understand the principles, they apply everywhere. You don't have to become expert in Bhagavad Gita, in the Bible, in order to
Preach Bhagavad Gita.
To speak with them. You don't have to, and actually it's dangerous, because imagine somebody comes to you, Christian or Muslim, and he starts quoting Bhagavad Gita to you. Are you going to take him seriously? The guy, what do you know about Bhagavad Gita? It's my book. So, I guess this is also, in this sense, what Bhakti says here can be taken also in this one.
Yeah, and we'll get to it at some point in like a page or two, where if there's fundamental differences, we can do something about it. But in general, it's don't study, don't criticize it. But we'll get to that maybe, what's today, Friday? Monday. Right? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.